Now you know. All right. So I was again listening to these audios again, and I was like, right, this is where those questions came from. Like the what sounds fun? What are you curious about? What are you interested in? What sounds easy? Because that if I get another mug, that will be what that mug says, right? It's like, what can you just go do? Um, um, because I think, especially for those of us who have done the here is your clearly defined track or path, it is so hard to wrap your head around the idea of like, I'm just gonna like wing it and see what happens. Like that does not seem like a viable plan, especially too when you can just scoop up one $27 plan after another that tells you the exact right way to build your 28-figure business, right? So, um, and yet it's interesting, right? Because I've never framed prep work that way before. We've talked a lot about prep work being about building momentum and even about it being like trauma informed, and that like this is how you build a business if you have a lot of stuff around building a business. Um, but I've never talked about it in terms of like what we're doing here is restoring your ability to choose, right? And that's why those questions are so valuable, because like a lot of us want to have clarity around, well, what should the path look like, whether we're talking about like the business or what we're going to do with our lives next, or whatever, doesn't really matter. But a lot of us want a plan and find it really hard to move forward without one. um but there's that catch 22 of like, I'm not going to be able to make a plan unless I have enough input, largely about myself, to know what it is that's right to do next and how it is I show up best. And so that's why I think those questions are so important for this shift. So I was curious, like, I feel like a lot of people need the engagement shift right now. I have needed the engagement shift because one of the things that I said in, I think, the first or second lesson is that often we are wanting clarity because we've gone through some kind of period of growth or change. So the assumptions that used to be true, like, okay, well, here's how I can do this. Here's how I get this result. This is what works for me. Those things don't work anymore, right? Like something has changed. And so then we have to like get new clarity around what it is that works for us. But that process is really uncomfortable. Well, now we've all gone through, you know, 18 months, 20 months, 47 months, however many, right? Of like everything that we knew being brought into question, which has greater or lesser implications for some of your businesses, right? But it means that some of the things that you took for granted are no longer true, or at least weren't for a while. And that degree of change can create a lot of like, well, but now I don't know what to do, right? The path that was prescribed, the path that like at least I was on a trajectory before and now I'm not anymore, right? It like brings it all into question. So enter engagement shift, path of least resistance, 4 questions, all of the things, right? Um, so I'm kind of curious where you guys find your relationship to clarity and wanting it right now. How whether it was pandemic related or not, how the last 6 to 12 months have been. Do you feel like you know what you're doing? Does it feel like you're just throwing spaghetti at the wall?
I
Tell
think for
me
me,
that.
there's, and this is true not just the last kind of 12, 18 months, it's true for a longer time. A lot of stuff has come to me without me actively looking for it. And to be fair, there's some stuff like I don't just pick up everything I find, but it's not that I decided like I'm going to be X and here are the steps to become X. And so even getting into translation was kind of, it was something that I was doing to serve a different need. And then I stayed into it because it was easy, it was flexible. And then I kind of got more involved in it and developed specialist subjects and so on. And when I was going through the worksheets and the Wheel of Business Balance, I was kind of like, I don't know how I get a lot of my clients. So I asked them like the basic questions, like, how did you find me?
Yeah.
And for some of them, it's referrals.
Yeah.
Which is great. And I always send a gift when I can identify who made a referral for me.
Right.
And other times they saw my name in a directory, but I don't know what made them follow up on the referral except for specialization, which is something I can, like, we need somebody who translates X, like this subject in this language combination. But otherwise, it's just like there's at least 180 people listed for my language combination on the site that some of these people find me on. It's just like, well, why me? And so in terms of, as well as like, if I want something, it's just like, oh, I want more money. And it's just like, there's no lever I know how to crank to kind of turn that up. It's just like, I wait and see if stuff comes into my inbox and I choose to work those hours or not.
Yes.
And so for me, it's just like, it's always been quite unclear and it's always worked out, but it's not a very, if I'm forward looking and trying to kind of go, what do I need to do? That's not clear.
Yep. Does that feel problematic or are you okay with that? I mean, because it's working.
On an everyday basis, no, it doesn't feel problematic. It felt very problematic last year when a lot of my existing clients disappeared.
Yep.
But then this year, since I've got a fairly new client base, it hasn't really been a problem. And I only think about it when I'm trying to do larger term planning. Like, I don't sit down at my desk at 9 o'clock every morning and worry about it now.
Yep. So when you try to do longer term planning, what feels like it's missing then?
It's I suppose knowledge. It's this kind of, I don't know, a lot of these referrals and these decisions happen out of my site. It's not like I go on a sales call with someone, although that did come up recently, the kind of the two new clients that I started working with end of last year, this year, wanted video calls, but it was almost more like kind of they were doing a buyer call with me than me doing a sales call with them. But so it's just kind of, how do I encourage people to make a referral? How do I make that more likely? I don't know. And how do I make people pick me out of a list of 80 people in a directory? I don't know why they've chosen me, apart from I have a specialization listed, but so do 40 other people. So you waving at me, Ellen?
Yes.
This is going to sound kind of funny, but because your name starts with A.
We do have that problem in one of the directories that I'm in, yes. The other ones are randomized.
My chiropractic business, I deliberately chose something that starts with a number, because when people are going down their list, they
11AA chiropractic service.
21st century chiropractic, they find me before they start the alphabet, right? So that may be it. As crazy as it sounds, that simply may be it.
No. It's a problem that we've been trying to solve for a group of women for a long time, because like it always sorts in alphabetical order and people always complain about it.
Yeah.
But that's a very plausible reason, and there's nothing I can do.
Right.
But okay, so that kind of brings up a valid point, is like what you're what you're noticing is like, I have no control over this, right? So presumably, if you want to double your income, it seems like you have no way to make that happen, right? Because you don't know what things are bringing in the current income. So how would I like suddenly go get more, right?
Other than cloning myself, yes.
Yes. Right. In your case, no, please don't. Right. But like,
Would have been earlier.
so, okay. I talked with somebody else in the group about this week because they went and talked to an existing client and asked them like, what is it like, what is the value of our working together, right? And that person was like, well, you're good at what you do, but like basically I just like you, right? Like hang like something about being in your energy is what I like, right? And this is really hard for really smart beers because you want to be chosen on the merits of your work. You're like, but I'm really good at this, right? And but the truth of the matter is you're likely going to be chosen because people like you and because something about them wants to be with you, right? Most people that come into prep work have had some kind of interaction with me before, right? Like we've like, I don't know, exchanged some emails, or they have followed me for a while, or when I was doing workshops, they came through workshops first and then they bought prep work, right? There are very few instances of like somebody coming to me completely cold because I'm not set up that way, right? I'm not set up to like push somebody's pain points and then make them realize that here I have the thing that will take your pain away, because that's not what I care about, right? And for most of you, marketing isn't going to feel good in that way because you understand like, hey, we're dealing with the whole here, right? Like I'm not just going to spot solve your problems or whatever. And your approach is going to be the thing that most people are drawn to, right? Which includes just kind of like how you show up and how you carry yourself and the words you use and your demeanor and like everything about it, right? Do you make yourself cheesy mugs with things you say too often, right? Like that will be the thing. And that it rubs really hard in this shift because it feels like, well, I have no control over this. I don't know what the thing is. What is the magic lever that I pull to, make the gumball drop? And it's like, you are the thing. You are it, right? And so the more you that you are, the clearer that you are on, and you guys, this is why we talk about this shift, particularly in terms of like, what are you interested in? What sounds fun? What are you curious about? What sounds easy, right? Because those things give you information about yourself and what it is you care about and what it is you value. And those things you can share with the people who you would potentially work with, whether that is explicitly like you being like, yo, this is how I do things. This is this is what matters. This is what's important. This is how I think about my work. Or whether it's just like in how you talk about what it is you do. The more clarity you have for yourself about how it is you show up, the better you are going to be able to draw people to you, right? But that seems like a deeply unsatisfying answer when you're like, I would like A plus B to equal C, right? And there is nothing like that. And here's the thing too, that's not to say that you can't get to a place, right? Like we've talked about this before. Do I rewrite a subject line in an email before I send it? Because I'm like, wait a minute, nobody's going to open that. That sounds like I'm telling people off, right? Does that actually make anybody want to click, right? There are certain things that I've now learned where like, oh, I can flex this lever a little bit. And you can continue to lean on those things. So like Arlene, in your case, are there certain ways that you can ask for referrals? Yes, absolutely. That is like a skill you could work on, right? But that's going to be born out of, I'm just doing my thing, right? I'm being me. And then if I have an opportunity to ask for a referral, if I think of somebody and their work lines up with something that I just did, or I know that this thing just wrapped up and maybe now they're thinking about next year's thing. Like there are opportunities for you, absolutely, on like a strategic side, but first it's going to be you. And then it's going to be like organic first with strategy layered on top, not how do I contort myself into this one strategy.
Which I'm no good at anyways.
Well, at least you have come to accept that.
I mean, in that sense, if it's down to like kind of, it's true that a lot of people I work with enjoy working with me, not necessarily for stuff directly related to the work, but for whatever reason, and I don't feel interchangeable to them.
Yes.
So I suppose my strategy there is just like, just meet more people.
Yes. Yes. And I mean, okay, for the vast majority of beers, where you guys are going wrong is not getting in front of enough people, period. You just let your you-ness do the job, but you're going to have to get your butt in front of people, or maybe your face. That might work better. Like, you know, being visible is required if your primary quote unquote marketing tactic is to let people see who you are and be drawn to that.
Because again, that answers the question of like, if you've got a list of 40 people who, like a lot of these translator directories, you kind of tick a box to say, this is my language combination, this is my specialist subject, and you've got 40 people who tick the same boxes. It's then how do you choose, how are these people different from each other?
Yes. But you guys, something you can do is think about times when you have hired someone and like, who did you go with? For most of us, it's going to be like, okay, I made sure that they're going to be good at what they do. That's like thing one, right? Thing two might, it depends then, right? Thing two might be price, right? But assuming that's all kind of relative, you're going to go with the person you like. The person you have some kind of rapport with, right? This is why I talk so much and made the whole sensitive sales follow-up formula thing, because like the people that I hired were the people who bothered to email me a week later and be like, so what did you think about this? Right. And like, I wanted to work with them, but nobody was forcing my hand on making a decision. And it's not that they were like, you have to work with me, but because nobody was keeping it top of mind for me, I wasn't either. And so the people who bothered enough to ask me like, hey, where does this stand? What are you thinking? Do you have questions? Those were the people I hired, because they showed me that they cared enough about me to like check in with me and be like, is this still a thing for you? Right? The people who communicated well were always the ones that I ended up hiring if all other things were equal, right? Because I got to know them better. I trusted them more and understood what our working relationship would be like.
there was an interesting discussion, one of the translators list that I'm on this week, and it was people kind of saying like, oh, well, this company wants to work with me. They want a phone call. And I was just like, yeah, I got possibly my two best ever clients this year, last year through a video call. It's just, what, isn't it a good thing that they want to talk to you first?
Yes. But there's a lot of people who, I think, like, especially in like online business world, right? There's like this strong push toward like evergreen sales and like everything being automated, right? And people are like, I want to take like, I need to take myself out of the process. That wastes a lot of time. And then like, what if I'm spending a lot of time with people who like aren't the right fit? Okay, well, how are you going to figure out how to get in front of the people who are the right fit if you don't talk to the people who are the wrong fit? There's a lot of information to be had by talking to the wrong people, right? And that's not to say to keep talking to them, but like squeeze that for what it's worth, because there's always something there. How are you feeling, Arlene? Like, are you okay with, let's go back to the little long-term planning thing. Is there something that you wish you could plan for long-term that it feels like you can't because you don't have these answers for yourself?
There's kind of a, and again, this is just an industry thing. It's just like, kind of, what if the whole people translating collapses because of machine translation and stuff like this? I don't think it's going to happen before I retire, but it might. And it's just like, well, what else would I do if I had to change careers? And I mean, I don't have an answer to that because I don't think it's likely enough to thought about it too much. But it's like, what if for some reason I couldn't, what if I got RSI? What if I couldn't carry on translating for some reason? I have some bizarre brain injury that means I can only speak English.
So, right, but that's like catastrophizing, you guys.
It is.
Engagement shift does not undo catastrophizing. Like, we're not looking for clarity around how I would deal with every possible situation, right? It's really like, can I engage with my work even if I don't know what steps 3 and 4 are, right? Can I like commit to being part of the process even if I don't know what to really do next or what's going to get me the result that I want? So to take your example, right? The sky falls and translation work is no longer viable, right? But then you would need the engagement shift. That's when you would need it. Is you're like, I have no clarity around what comes next. I don't know what to try. I don't know what to do. I'm not sure how I can. And that's where you would need to like, okay, what sounds fun? What am I interested in? Who do I know? Who can I talk to? Right? Those are the who do I know? Who can I talk to? Are actually also really good questions, especially like on a business perspective, not like who can I talk to because they would give me answers. Okay, as point of clarification, it's not like hitting up all of your friends and being like, I'm so confused. I don't know whether I should do this or this or this. No, not that, because they're just going to project all their shit on you. Right. But like, who do I know who I can like throw out this idea to? I was just talking about this with another client. She just like kind of tossed it all out there to somebody she had just met and was like, I'm thinking about this and this and this and this and this, right? But a lot of times the high achiever set are not willing to do that because, one, you might look flaky, right? Oh my gosh, she just listed off 14 things that she wants to do. That's cute. 2, it sounds a little like, well, what's your plan for that? That's cute. Everybody has dreams and ideas, right? 3, it could sound like you just don't have your shit together because you're not exactly sure which part is actually going to happen. And these are just ideas right now, right? But the more you guys practice like sharing what it is you're thinking of with people who can potentially be a resource to you, the more likely you are to get the clarity around how it is you can move forward. Right? So in terms of engagement shift clarity stuff, who do I know? Who can I ask for something is another really good question, because you bring other people into like the hive mind, right? Well, what do you know about doing things this way? What do you know about this process? Who do you know who's interested in this thing? And maybe nothing comes of it, right? Fine. But then maybe what you find out is that that was actually a crap idea and nobody wants it. Well, better to find that out by like having a few conversations than dedicating yourself to something for umpteen months and spending who knows how much on something only to find out then that it doesn't work or isn't viable, right?
But I think that would serve a lot of different purposes. I mean, you're literally engaging people, you're reconnecting with people, you're putting yourself back into their minds. And so I mean, I will spuriously reach out to people like, oh, I saw you in the news, or did you see this article, or I know you're working on this, here's something you might be interested in. And it's a form of just friendliness, but it's also like I'm pinging you. It's just like, I want to keep this connection alive. So
Yes.
I'm sending you something.
That's why you have business, by the way. That. I was recently on a podcast and they were like, if you were just going to do one thing every day to build your business, what would you do? And I was like, talk to people, like build relationships, help them, show them I give a shit. Kind of the end. That's it. That's all I would do forever and ever, because that's actually pretty much all I do. Right? But that's viable. The only thing with that is that like early on, it feels slow, right? Because it's like adding doubles, right? It's like 1 + 1 + 2 + 4. Like it feels like it takes forever, but you get to the place where like you can tap one lever, make one post. One of my friends said that to me this morning. Jess, like, I don't get it. You literally like make an Instagram story and then like your shit sells out. I'm like, yeah, well, right. But like, I'm talking to people nonstop in the background. And then I make the Instagram story. It's not like I drop out of people's lives for a year and then try to sell something over one story. That wouldn't fly. Right.
Because for me, this is where I see the gap, because like I'm not out there all day, every day, kind of priming people to hear from me and to act when they hear from me. But I open up my inbox and then stuff is there. But I guess it's just a different, and it's also another change over the last kind of 2 years it's been fewer larger projects instead of more smaller projects, which is an interesting change as well, and fewer, like way fewer clients. So I've gone from like 20 active, 50 potential clients to having like 4 or 5 active clients this year.
Yeah,
which is also scary, but nice and manageability.
right. Yes. Right, but like, you know what works. It's a matter of like, if you want more, then do more of those things that you know work, and trust that that's actually enough. I think that's the hardest thing. It took a long time before like I was actually okay with being like, nobody gives 2 shits whether you post on Facebook or not, right? Like, they really don't. And then like, or rather said this way, some people cared, right? There were a few people who were like, oh, you never post anymore. But either they were never going to buy from me anyways. So the thing they were getting from me was like me talking to them for free, right? Or they were people who like wanted to hear from me and enjoyed hearing from me, but like they heard from me anyways, right? Like we were already friends or something. And so like it didn't matter. And so like that wasn't essential to growing my business. And so like same with me posting on Instagram. I do it when it sounds fun. Which is why like I haven't posted a story in I don't know, a week or two even. I don't know. It's been a while. I didn't sleep last week. The baby was up constantly. So then there's no Instagram stories because my brain isn't working. Okay. But I'm okay with that because I know that's not essential for my business.
I have a friend who tells me like I do Instagram wrong. And she was like, if I don't have a strategy of like always liking certain people's posts and always doing this, I was like, I can't be bothered.
No.
It's just like I have one Instagram account where I put out information about sake, and that has a daily post that was written 3 years ago that goes out, and then I just post when I have something to say. I nothing annoys me more than posting for the sake of posting. It's just
right.
Why would I do that?
Yes.
I want to be a high signal person.
I actually kind of got rid of my Facebook business page and just started posting my stuff on my personal page.
Yeah.
Because I mean, why I was managing, two of them. It's like, well, you got to look this way on this page and this way on that page. And I'm like, I never really got anybody from Facebook anyway, but.
Well, and that's the thing, right? Is a lot of times there is like an idea that like, oh, this is the way to do it. But like you guys actually look at what's working, right? If you're not actually getting anybody via a certain method or channel, then drop it. It is not worth your effort, right? You're like, you are literally better off going human to human and being like, do you want this? Yes or no. Do you want this? Yes or no. Because you will get much better and much more concrete feedback, right? Yeah, I mean, so Alan brought up a good point, like in the chat. If you want to prime your people, you certainly can, right? Like either when I am lacking energy or when I can tell that like I dropped off the face of the planet for a little bit too long, right? Whether that's maternity leave or it happened last year when like I was suddenly home with everybody, right? Then in my case, I know that's doing a workshop, right? I can always spin up a workshop and let everybody sit with me in a Zoom room and it like redoes the mojo, right? Or I can just go on a podcasting spree, right? It is the like showing your work thing, right? I just show people what I do by doing it. For most of you, that's going to feel the most natural because there's not a lot of convincing. There's not a lot of like, well, here's why I'm the best. You don't even have to have good words about yourself. Like you literally just do your thing. And then people can decide for themselves in the experiencing of it, do I want more of that? Right?
My thing is, I guess over the last 18 months, there has been no clarity. I mean, it's just like things just unfold week by week. And that's all it does is unfold. And I mean, I think I'm trying to get, I mean, I'm clear where I want to go, but it's just, it seems like I'm trudging along. I don't mean, it's just, am I, is it, I'm allowing life to happen, or am I kind of guiding it along? Some days it's just like, I just have to react, put out fire type things, but it's just
Yes.
like, I can't, I mean, a friend wants to have lunch and I'm like, I don't know how it's going to be at the end of the month. So,
Okay, what about that example? What's your point with like a friend wanting to have lunch? Keep going.
well, it's just, I mean, okay, I mean, it's just now the end of, October. I go, I don't know what's going to happen in November. I mean, I could plan something, but things I've been like just shuffling and, I'll have one thing set up and then all this stuff happens over here and then this can't happen, all of it. So this has to go away or this gets moved there. And then I set up a schedule and these things happen and I shuffle this stuff around and
Is the stuff that's happening other people like inserting themselves? Like,
no, just
no.
just life. Well, kind of, well, I mean, something like my mother or um, a client wants to change a schedule or I have to move something or or I wanted to be out of my storage unit. So now it's like I waited to the last minute. So I only have 3 days to move, 50 square feet of stuff all by myself. And, I can't do that. So it's like, or they don't have a space for me for my RV here this day, but this day, and then I have to find someone move me that day. It's just everything.
Yeah. How do you feel like you are with boundaries?
I don't know. I feel like a pinball game right now, but I just I'm just the little flippers are like flipping me in the ball. I thought I was pretty good, but and when it's mother, you can't say no. Um, when it's a client and they're paying you and they're not a bad client and you want to keep them. Um, when it's a more economical, budget friendly thing, clear up space for money, clear up space for time. It's just all wonky.
So if it feels like you're reacting though, then go back to inspiration shift. Because as soon as you were like, yeah, you can't say no to mom, my head is like, really?
Really, you can't.
Okay, why? Let's talk through it. What happens if you do?
Uh, the guilt. I mean, the guilt text, and then she'll go to my brothers and bombard them with all these emails. Your sister, she hurt my feelings, and behind your back, and then she'll send you texts like, "Woe is me," and then it's just it doesn't affect me, but she like go bothers my brothers and everybody else too, and now I'm this evil wench because I said no to mother. The whole world knows it.
Can you just let her think that
Think that what
that you're an evil wench?
I guess so. I'm a little more comfortable with it, but she used to have a lot of control over me, but I don't let her anymore. I mean, and stuff will roll off, but
Yep.
when mother wants you to do something, it's like the whole catastrophic events that transpire down into other people's lives.
Yep. And yet that sounds like, well, I'm going to take care of my brother by
Mhm.
making sure that he doesn't hear it from my mom.
Mhm.
And I'm going to like make sure my mom doesn't feel uncomfortable by making sure that she is okay. Right. Uh, like there's lots of caretaking everybody else's feelings, right? And being aware of what everybody else wants. And the question there is like, well, when do you come into the picture? And who's looking out for your feelings? And when did it become your problem to make sure that everybody else is happy? I'm not saying to not be there for family, right? But it's one thing to choose it. If you were like, no, like that's my mom, and like I love being able to be there for her. And it's another to be like, if I don't go help my mom out, oh, the guilt.
Yeah.
That's the bear, right?
Mhm.
The guilt is the bear. I am just trying to prevent all of the shit show that will happen if I say no. And so I allow myself to be, flappered over to the next thing.
Yeah. I guess there's one thing I could plan for, but just, I don't know, it just seems like everything just keeps coming at me, life in general. I guess I'm trying to plan. I think I let go of planning.
I don't know that it's so much about planning
Hmm.
as feeling like you're really making your own decisions for yourself.
Sometimes it seems like I can't because, I
And
need
that's
something
true.
over here, it's full, or this person's busy, or we're
Right.
closed, or we're overbooked. And
Yeah, I can't tell my kid like, no, sorry, you don't get lunch today, right? He's one. Like, I have to react,
Mhm.
right? If he needs a diaper change, I have to do that. I have to react to that. That is not a choice that I have. So that can happen, but if the majority of your life or business, you guys, feels like you're reacting, if you feel like you can't say no to clients, if you feel like you can't say no to your partner, if you feel like you can't say no to, I had a client be like, I'm going to make my sacrificial post to the algorithm gods. Right? I'm like, yeah, probably don't actually need to do that then, right? If you feel like you can't say no, then all the inspiration shift stuff, you have made that thing into a bear, right? You are trying to prevent some kind of negative outcome because you don't want to deal with the consequences of it. I don't want to get the texts from my mom. Just delete them. You see her name pop up after you say no, delete. You don't even read it. Just delete. It does not matter. She can have her space to be angry and pissy and hurt and unloved. That's okay. Delete. I have said this many times before. There was a time where like my husband listened to all my voicemails from my parents because I was like, not sure which way this one's going to go. So he would listen to them for me. And then sometimes he'd be like, nope, you don't need to hear that one. And then other times he'd be like, no, this one's nice, right? And he would like, let me listen to it then. But see, that was a boundary that I put up for myself. Like, actually, no, I don't need to hear their crap. I do not need to know if they are bothered by me being an adult and having my own life. That's not my problem. So I put up that boundary, right?
I've gotten good with the emails. I'll like read like the first couple of them. If it comes up on my phone, you can see like the first sentence, and I'm like, but, so I've gotten pretty good with those. But
It is hard to have clarity for yourself, you guys, in general, if you are always reacting and preventing negative outcomes. You can't have clarity then. Because how are you going to know what it is you want? You can't even answer what sounds fun. What am I curious about? What am I interested in? If you're spending all of your time preventing problems, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I think
I don't know. It
it's-
just seems like the last 6 months just seems like stuff's just been like thrown at me from family to clients to residential.
Yeah. You have all the things right now. Boundaries, big boundaries.
And here's what you're saying about the pinball machines. It's like, can you stop one flipper? Can you just get one
Yeah.
flipper to stop and then build on that?
Yes. Yes. How are the rest of you? Okay. By all means, don't all speak at once. Alan, how is work?
That better? Sorry, I just have background noise, and the dog is apparently having the world's ending of not being able to go outside. So she's been barking, scratching at the door, and generally throwing an absolute fit because she's a diva. And I love her to pieces, but she's definitely a diva. So I had that muted. Work is okay. It's still my second choice in life. But I'm breaking a suggestion that you gave me during private coaching about what's going to be the first direction, and I've had to make peace with that because you told me that I can't save the world, and sorry, going to do it anyway. It's Arlene, Jill, and Dan know all about this. It's just where I'm going with my particular concept in coaching is going to be a little bit more broad, and yeah, and I'm running up on a lot of imposter stuff on that, and I'm just working through it and figuring out, okay, because there's not really anybody that I see doing what I'm going to do, and it kind of allows me to embrace really what I'm passionate about,
Yep.
which is good, but at the same time, I'm trying not to build a sense of personal value and personal worth on how it works out.
Yes.
You know, us beers like to, have something to be about. Well, it's like I am, I am this because of, and it's like, no, I am because I am. Like that's
I am.
right. But so it's trying not to fall into that pitfall of, okay, if this doesn't work out, or if this doesn't work correctly, or am I going to have to shift halfway through, or trying not to get caught up on that stuff, while at the same time trying to build a whole bunch of material. I mean, I can, could I just start right now? Sure. But I actually want it to seem like I'm sort of remotely responsible adult and not slightly deranged person in need of a minder, which can happen a lot. So everyone's like, yeah, sure. It's really kind of figuring that stuff out, and like I said, disconnecting from this being about a sense of self-worth, or not even necessarily purpose. It's just a case of, this is what I want to do.
Yes.
I want to make a difference. Does this give me a vehicle to make a lot of money? Yeah, it does, if I work it right. But when it comes right down to it, I don't need anybody's permission, and I really don't listen to anybody else's opinion on it either.
Yes.
But at the same time, I also have to be aware that means that fail, succeed, whatever, that's kind of my thing too. And I realize there are a bunch of variables that I don't have control on that. But at the same time, it's like I say, it's disconnecting. It's just making sense of the fact of, okay, I'm just going to do this. I'm going to try and do it as best I can, which, you know, in my mind means the videos have to have cute little graphics and be on point, and my branding colors are correct, and yeah, all of the things that I try to come up with so I don't actually have to start doing something. Right? Jill's nodding her head like, yeah,
I can pass you on my Adobe Illustrator subscription.
you know, well, like, I mean, I literally just bought my son just got a really nice graphics computer that like I would personally love to have. And I'm supposed to be supplying him with all this video stuff to edit, and so far it's like crickets, you know, there's not that going on. But then I think back to, you know, a mindset coach that I have that seemed to have a problem getting her podcasts edited. So it was like, okay, I'm in the right field here. You know?
There's a few things here, like
Really? Just a few?
one, if we hang on to the idea that all of this is about momentum, right? Then what I say or what anybody else says or what anybody else or myself suggests should absolutely go out the window if it screws with your momentum, right? And so if you need to do something in a certain way, because that's the way that you will actually keep going forward, that's the whole friggin' point. Like, then do it that way, right? Even if it flies in the face of something else we talk about here, because fundamentally, this is about how do you keep going? Like, movement forward is all we're actually interested in. The other thing here was,
Well, can I ask you a question on that?
yeah,
Would you say that analysis paralysis is like a significant thing for beers? Because
yes,
okay. Well, like I put that thing up in the Facebook group the other day with the thing that woman tweeted about, like, not, you
yeah,
know,
yeah,
and it was just like I'm seeing so many like similarities within the prep work family that it almost feels like we're all clones sometimes, because we all seem to have a lot of the same issues. You know,
There's reasons why we're all here.
right? Like realizing that I know that my brain is going, well, okay, if I don't, you know, make a video perfect, then it's going to be when in reality, it's like, that's just my brain going, but here, look, here's another excuse why you don't actually have to do something.
yes,
So when you're talking about momentum, that makes huge sense.
yes. There's a whole like sidebar we could have on that, but short answer is yes, right? Which, I mean, look, analysis paralysis is like, I don't want the bear of failing. I don't want the bear of looking like I don't have my shit together. I don't want the bear of not being taken seriously. I don't want the bear of like, well, this is my life's work. And so if it fails, then what does that mean for the rest of my life, right? Like all of these things that make us want to do it right, right? And a lot of people in this position are doing the thing that they like are very good at. And so then the bar for communicating their skill is just as high as their skill at doing that thing. And it's like, that may not be necessary, right? You may not need to be as good of a CEO as you are a translator, a coach, a writer, whatever, right? Like, you don't need to be as good at business as you are at the thing that you do in order to make the kind of money or impact that you want for yourself. I mean, to your point about like, you know, I'm taking on the big thing. I'm doing the big thing. That's where the seeking shift comes into play, because what you're after there is not like, will this work immediately, right? Is this going to get into the hands of thousands of people? Is this going to make me millions, bajillions of dollars, right? If you keep your eye on like, what is it that I'm trying to get out of this project? It's probably the the validation that, yes, this is good. Yes, this is a thing that I can do. Yes, this is a group of people I can help, right? And if you keep your eye on that, then you'll keep going because your expectations are in the right spot. So rather than your expectations being around like, what are the numbers? What is the something that would fall under a SMART goal type of category, it's much more about like, how is this helping me understand how it is I show up, which enables me to show up more, right? That's the key there, which is often why my suggestion is don't try to do the huge thing because it's often too huge, right? And it becomes like this like overwhelming, how do we eat an elephant kind of thing, right? And some of you try to like just one bite it, right? And I'm like, I don't know if that's advisable, right? But if that's where you can actually get going, then I'm not saying anything to it. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay.
The image that came into my head is like not so much the running away from the bear, but like you kind of forget there's a marathon on and you sit there and you build a fort. And like the fort's great, the bear's never going to get through, but the marathon is happening without you.
Yes. So if we think of this in terms of fight, flight, freeze, right? That is people who take like a freeze response, where it's like, I'm just going to hunker down. And like, I've learned how to not let anything in. I'm protected, but I'm also not making any progress forward. Right? So that's a common trajectory. Let's put it that way, right? Where like initially you're reacting to everything, whether that's other people's advice or like whatever. You spend a lot of time just being chased by whatever comes along, right? So then you start to learn to kind of undo that. And the next step is often like, okay, well, I hunker down now. I'm not going to let myself be chased. I'm not going to run around for the sake of running around, right? And so you learn to save your energy. And this is why beers are often much more energy scarce than they are like money scarce. They'll happily throw money at things, but if you tell them like, oh no, you're gonna have to put effort into this, you're gonna have to like, if it looks like it might deplete their energy, they're like, nope, not doing it, right? Because they spent so much time running in the past from all the things that they were reacting to that they'd rather just like sit in one spot. And then that's where it's hard to engage, right? Because it's like, well, unless I absolutely know that this is the right next step, I'm not going to do it, right? Like they want like, Wizard of Oz style, yellow brick road, like very clear path. And then, yes, fine, I will commit to taking a step. And that's often a reaction to having spent so much time running around reacting to things. So it makes sense. It is progress, but you're right in that you're not making progress towards anything. Eileen said, and as you watch everyone else running the marathon, the bear fort becomes Chateau FOMO. I love it.
Okay, merch supervisor here. That is a fantastic visual. Yes. Chateau FOMO is
FOMO.
Oh God,
that needs to be a thing.
If I had any artistic talent, I would be drawing right now.
No, you buy assets and use Illustrator.
That's what Jana's here for.
Yeah,
Right.
I was just gonna say, Jana, please find us a photo of Chateau FOMO. That's awesome. But it's true, right? Like it's funny, years and years ago when I did the first round of workshops for water, I talked about how like all of you, like your mindset is like the foundation of your house, right? And it's fine, like you ended up with a house, whatever house it is you have, but some people like keep wanting to like improve the existing house, except you're holding blueprints to like something much, much better, but you cannot build that much, much better house on the existing foundation. And so the only way you're going to get there is literally by like burning everything down that exists. And it is that like in between phase of like burning it all down and like consciously being willing to destroy what is, that is like kind of terrifying, right? And that is when we turn, where the inclination is to rather like, you know, paint the walls, and well, maybe if we put in new flooring, like then I'll like the existing house enough. And meanwhile, some part of you is like, yeah, but I really want that other thing, right? And that is when we end up, I mean, this is why most mindset advice is shit, because it's like teaching you how to paint the walls, right? Like, let's just reframe. Well, if we slap down a rug over those threadbare carpets, then it's not so bad, right? If we have gratitude, then we realize that our 3 bedrooms are more than enough, even though, you know, the blueprints for the next place has 5 bedrooms, like whatever. That is what a lot of mindset advice comes down to, is like making do with what is. But for some of you, that's not enough, right? But that means then that you have to go through the scary process of like torching everything.
As if you're not brave enough to torch, then the lick of paint is it looks like the only solution you've got. If you're
Yes,
not willing
exactly.
to go for the can of gasoline, petrol.
Yes.
I'm
How
getting
would
a,
that
I'm getting
be
a
on
merch.
the sales page?
I know. I'm getting a merch picture with you and a can of gasoline and a match. Like, are you ready? You know.
Yes. Things that should go on the sales page. Everyone
I
will
put it down
sign
to
up.
lack of caffeine. Yeah.
I'm even getting this, like, I know we can't say evergreen webinar, but I'm having this evergreen webinar thing with like flames coming up, and you know, yeah, that would work.
Webinar, it has to be like
Excellent.
That would work really well.
You guys, the torching is getting rid of identities that you've held on to too long, right? So the problem is like, okay, here's the deal. Socially, your home is built around other people whose homes probably look a lot like yours, right? That's how you got your foundation, is because they made yours kind of look like theirs. And that becomes really precarious if everybody else has kind of left theirs the way it is. And now all of a sudden you want to do something so much bigger, because you will no longer fit in with the quote unquote neighborhood that you were a part of and that gave you your initial foundation. And that also changes your sense of self, right? If you are the kind of person who lives in a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom, right? And now all of a sudden you want like a full custom log cabin that's set on 10 acres, that is a different person. And so are you willing to not be who it is you've been this whole time in order to have what it is you want to have? And the more you understand what core identities you like hang on to tightly, which as we've discussed for many of you is things like, I'm smart, I'm independent, I'm like strong, right? It's like these things that you're like, yes, I am this, right? And as soon as you don't need to be seen that way, then it's easier to torch the stuff that you have but don't really want anyways. It's like a little tangent here, diversion.
Marathons, construction. Yeah.
Yeah, it's fine. Okay. Anyone else? How are you all?
So when you're, oh, go ahead, Joe.
Oh, no, go ahead, because it sounded like you were going to ask a question. I might be changing the subject.
So when you're like torching things, you're, I mean, literally and figuratively, there's a period of transition,
Yes.
pretty much. So there's not going to be too much forward momentum. And hopefully you will rise from the ashes with clarity like a phoenix. No?
So like some of what you might be torching right now is like what it looks like to be a good daughter,
Mm-hmm.
right? Or like a good family member, right? Or somebody who is caring. Well, but like, what does that actually need to look like for you, right? What is important for you to do to feel like you're showing up the way that you want to, rather than like the way you are expected to, or even the way you expect yourself to, because maybe that needs to be questioned, right? So if there are, the other analogy that I've used often is like my kids, especially when they were a lot smaller, would wear those footy pajamas, and the thing with those is like there's not really much wearing those when they're too small. Like when they're too small, they are too small. But my kids saw me trying to get rid of one of them once, and like all hell broke loose, because she was like, no, like those are my favorite. And I was like, but they don't even fit you anymore. And she's like, yes, they do. And so she put herself in them, and her toes were curled up, and like she couldn't even stretch her legs out, and the crotch was like actually between her thighs and stuff. And it was just like, but she insisted. She's like, no, this is what I want. This is what's comfortable, right? Because she liked it, right? And so the point being, that's what was. And even though it wasn't uncomfortable, or even though it was uncomfortable now, she was familiar with it. And so she like kept doing the uncomfortable thing. So if you're going to put on pajamas, an identity that fits now, that requires taking off the old ones, and you're going to be standing there for a minute naked, right? And there's that vulnerability of like, I don't know who I am and if I like this. I don't know if I want other people to see me like this. I don't know yet. I haven't even picked out other pajamas yet, right? All of these things, right? But things that help that, the more excited you are about what it is you are going to step into, right? So as soon as I went and I grabbed new pajamas for her, and I was like, these actually fit you. And it was like a print she actually really liked and stuff. Then she was more willing to even acknowledge like, oh, these actually are kind of uncomfortable, right? So the more excited you can get about what it is that comes next, the more you can paint a picture of how things could be, the easier it's going to be to let yourself be vulnerable for a bit.
I think as well, going back to I think it's from the first shift, it's the whole thing of like, what are you tolerating? Because I think if you're in a state of mind where like you can't really picture what you want to go for and what would make you happy and what would inspire you, you can look around you and go like, well, if I could stop that one thing that really annoys me.
Yes,
and
exactly.
Then I think you train yourself towards kind of orienting yourself towards stuff that would make you happy.
Yes.
I think it's not always a fast process or a smooth process, but like
No.
It's much easier to start with that for me.
Yes. Guys, I'm gonna have to wrap up because the kiddos' school has called me now 3 times, which is never a good sign. I tried to ignore it twice, but after the third time, I should probably not ignore it anymore. Um,
Hey, at least
Jill,
it's less traumatic than the passing out babysitter. Remember that?
yeah, right. I mean,
Oh,
there's
God,
that. There was
yes.
also that. Like, I can't see anything. Okay, hold on a minute.
You're officially off babysitting duty.
Fine. Jill, whatever question you have, please post it in the group. Yes, thank
Yeah,
you.
literally just said, I'm going to post it in the group later.
Yes.
So
Okay.
yes, you go deal with kid stuff.
Honesty shift week next week.
Bring your tissues.
Is this where we feign enthusiasm?
Right.
Yeah.
No, just start crying a week early. It's fine.
Okay. All right.
All right.
Have a good week.
Take care.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks.